Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first School Psych podcast / Twitter chat. So we're really excited to see how this is going to play out. I'm a little bit nervous, but we're going to be doing a Twitter chat concurrently with us talking to you. And so we're going to be doing a lot of multitasking, and we're going to walk you through it. If you're not super familiar with Twitter, we'd love for you to try and join us because we're kind of learning a little bit on our end as well. But we've got some experts here tonight, so I'm really excited for our lineup with some really savvy social media school psych. So we'll be talking social media and the impact on school psychology and professional development and that whole big thing. But my name is Rachel. I'm going to be tweeting out an intro on about myself too on Twitter, welcoming everybody to the chat. But I'm a school psych and I'm working in Maryland. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca now. Rebecca?
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. I'm a school psych working in the state of Connecticut, and tonight's participation can happen in so many different ways, so I'm going to tell you briefly how to participate, but feel free to ask questions as we go along. If you're not sure and you want to comment, you can comment on Facebook using the hashtag Psyched Podcast, and you can comment on School Psyched, Your School Psychologist, or the School Psyched Podcast page. I'll be looking for notifications. You can comment in messages or write on the page. You can also comment directly on Twitter. We're hoping that you will join us in our Twitter chat using the hashtag Psyched Podcast, and look for our Q&A format. So we're going to tweet out a question one, which will say Q1, and then you respond with A1, and we'll continue like that. We're hoping to hear from you on Twitter, and you can also comment right along if you're watching us live on YouTube. Comment right alongside the video, and we'll be looking for you there as well. We're really excited to introduce our guest, but first Anna is going to tell you a little bit about our poll and introduce herself.
Hi guys, I'm Anna. I'm a school psych working in upstate New York. We had a poll on Facebook that got shared across a few different pages, finding out about what you do with social media and how you use it to increase your school psych knowledge and resources. And wow, we got a lot of responses. Now, there's a little bit of bias because it was shared on Facebook, so it's not a huge surprise that Facebook was above and beyond the winner. We had over 300 votes of people that follow school psych Facebook groups, pages, communities for resources and to connect with others. So that is a very common practice, and there's a lot of cool pages out there. The second place vote was 161 votes. People find resources on Pinterest, which I can relate to as well. We had 150 votes for people that follow school psychs and other professionals like school counselors, social workers, peachy speechy administrators, etc. We had 50 votes for people who find resources on YouTube. 35 votes, people follow school psych related Twitter accounts. 31 votes, people connect electronically through NASP. And at 30 votes, people watch School Psych Podcast. Awesome. And then 21 votes for Instagram, and I signed up for Instagram and tried to figure it out today. It didn't work. Well, I couldn't figure it out, but that's awesome that it exists on there. I learned that today. And just 2 votes for people who don't use social media, which is funny because like I had to vote on social media. I just love it. So thank you to everyone out there who participated in our poll, and it's so great that we have these resources that really, I don't think existed back when I was in grad school, so it's awesome. So I want to introduce our first guest, Dr. Stephen Shaw. He's an associate professor in the Department of Educational Counseling Psychology at Educational and Counseling Psychology at McGill University in Montreal. He's the graduate program director of the School Applied Child Psychology program. He earned a PhD in school psychology at the University of Florida. He was a school psych for 17 years, and he's done a lot of great research, and he also is way better at Twitter than me. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Would you mind giving us a brief background of how you got involved in social media?
Yes, I'm not particularly good at it. I developed a Twitter account mostly to communicate with my students because as a professor, I have a lab with students, and in the summer, everybody scatters. And so this was a way to communicate. Well, I realized it wasn't a particularly good way, and also I got a lot of other people following our lab discussions. So now that we've replaced my lab communication with Slack, which is really for projects. And that's been wonderful. But what I found is that I had a lot of people following me on Twitter. And so it's been a wonderful place to communicate to professors around the world, experts in everything from genetics to medicine, educational psychologists in Australia. It's wonderful to see that. And so I've stuck with it, and people still, I stopped tweeting about coffee because I do that every day, but when I stop, people complain. They wanted more coffee tweets. So now I feel like I have to do it. And but really right now it's mostly for university professors and graduate students and postdocs talking about developing a research career. That's really the majority of people who are on there, and it's much bigger in Europe, especially England, than it is in the US. So there's an awful lot of folks doing it. And I also turned this into a blog that I have, which is called How Not to Suck in Graduate School. And so that one, I'm surprised how many people read that, but it's a lot of fun about tips to survive being a graduate school or a new professor. So it's kind of gone that way and a little bit away from practice, which sort of surprised me. Dan Florell and I put together a Facebook page called School Psychology Forum because I was the editor of that journal. And we realized that even though there must be 5,000, 6,000 people on there, no one had any idea it had anything to do with the journal. Now they just discuss school psychology issues in general. We were going to close it down when my editorship ended, but there's so many people using it in such a productive way, we just figured we would keep it. So a lot of things, as you can tell, are kind of happening by accident, and I think that's really how I've got involved in social media, especially Twitter. I still don't know much about it, but accidentally I've learned a lot.
Very cool. I know that I appreciate the humor that you share on the Twitter account, for sure. So I'm going to introduce our next guest, who is the face behind the Facebook page, Sincerely School Psychologist. So we're super happy to get her out and interact with her. But Sincerely School Psychologist, known as Sue to her real life friends, has been practicing school psychology for 13 years in 4 different school districts in the West. She has a master's and specialist degrees from the University of Nebraska and the University of Arizona. And someday she'll finish the blasted dissertation. I think a lot of us end up in that boat where almost, but not quite there. Right. Sue has 4 fantastic children of her own, ranging from 10 to 20. She started the Sincerely page in 2013 and enjoys collating the input, advice, and resources from colleagues around the country. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This is going to be fun.
You want to tell us a little bit about what got you started and what your motivations are?
Sure, yeah. Well, 4 or 5 years ago, I was working in a small district with, very few other psychologists, and every once in a while I would share silly stories or generic frustrations on my own personal Facebook page, where I was friends with kind of a wider circle of psychologists. And those exchanges were really therapeutic for me because it was a very difficult year. And I learned that I wasn't the only one struggling with specific situations, difficulties getting behavior rating scales back from teachers or administrators who don't really understand special education law, or feeling like you're the only champion for some of the kids that we work with. Those were all things that were very common in this profession that you forget when you're isolated. So I thought a public Facebook page might be a good place to let others know they weren't so alone, and that's how the Sincerely page was born.
Very cool, exciting. I definitely enjoy the humor too. I love the humor and the collaboration. So.
Thanks.
Definitely. I was so excited. I think it was right before internship, maybe in my practicum, where I just happened to be on Facebook searching school psychologists and found your page. And I was so excited that there was someone out there that would talk about the fields and just everyday things and make it fun. You are an inspiration to me.
That is so flattering. Thank you so much. Ditto.
And we have our other awesome rock star guest, Clem. Clem is the NAS social media guru and so much more. Welcome, Clem. Could you introduce yourself a little bit to our audience?
Definitely. Thank you so much for inviting me. So my name is Clem Colston. As Rebecca shared, I'm with NASP, and I work on our social media venues. But I also want to talk about how I actually got involved with Twitter in general. So it was about a couple of years ago, I was on a Facebook group talking about student voice, the importance of having student voice in the classroom, and being part of the educational decisions of not just tomorrow but of today. And someone's like, hey, join this Twitter chat. And this was, I think, about 4 years ago. I was like, I've never heard of a Twitter chat. Why should I join? And he's like, oh, it's a great way in order to connect with people who are interested in what you like. You can also understand what are the other perspectives of other people. So I joined this chat out of nowhere, and I was like instantly hooked. From that, we were able to co-create an organization, and now I'm also really embedded with communications. So again, it's really about finding ways to meet people where they are and then moving forward. So I'm really excited to talk about the different ways about Twitter chats and social media and learn with this great group of people.
So great. Thank you so much.
I'm going to jump in, and Rebecca, you need to introduce yourself too, because you have a bit of a social media presence with your Facebook page.
Yes, well, my Facebook page, School Psych, Your School Psychologist, was inspired by Sue's page. And there, at the time, was one other school psychologist that I found, and her name originally was Burgeoning School Psychologist, and now she's Evolving School Psychologist. So she's also been an inspiration to me. I just, one night, came home and thought, let me start a page where I can collect all the cool things that other people are sharing and share them out. And I just literally started it with like 10 of my friends that thought that maybe they might be interested in some of the things I had to say. And then it just grew. It grew. And I'm not really even sure how, but actually, I do remember. I reached out to Rebecca Brainsetter, who also had a page. Her page was really, really popular, and she had written a book. And I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, I'm starting a new page, and I just wanted to let you know, and thank you for your page. I really enjoy it." And she shared my Facebook page, so that I got a few people that way, and it just grew and grew. And then I met Rachel, and I think we've told that story before. I met Rachel through my page, and she said, "I have this idea. My friend Anna and I were thinking about doing these other things." And it's just been such a great experience for me, because as still an early career person, I learned so much. There's so much benefit in being connected to other professionals and sharing resources or ideas or inspiration. I just think it's wonderful. So I'm really excited about this social media episode, and to have all of you on, because you're all such inspirations to so many of us. And I think some of us are more quiet about saying that to you, but I know, I get some messages all the time from other people that say they're so glad to have found our little niche of people.
So, Clem, do you want to walk us through our first question and how people do this Twitter thing?
Yeah. So Rebecca talked a little bit about it earlier. So also with their introductions, the one thing is everyone on this panel right now, virtual panel, has a Twitter handle. So a Twitter handle starts with the @ symbol. So mine is @clemency26. And I think if you go to twitter.com and go into the search bar, what you would do is first type in the hashtag that we're using right now. So we are using the hashtag, also known as the # or Justin Bieber does this, I've been told. And if you type in Psych Ed Podcast, all in one, and click search, what you'll be able to see is the conversation that's going on. So everyone already in this group have introduced themselves, and we actually had other people who have also shared introductions, and looking forward to this conversation. So what we're going to be doing today is having an organic conversation, not just amongst us as the group right now that are on this virtual video conference, but we're also going to be extending it to the Twitter world as well as through YouTube Live. So we're going to be posing questions. So the first question will come up shortly, and that'll be Q1, and we'll share that question. And then what we really hope is that folks who are watching this will do is respond virtually with their responses. So you would do A1, and then you would list your response. But the magic key is always including the hashtag, because the hashtag is like the glue of Twitter. If I'm interested in school climate, I can do a simple search on Twitter with that hashtag, and I'll be able to see all the conversations that are happening around the world that are including school climate. So with that said, and I also want to open up with this group to make sure I caught everything that needs to be discussed for Twitter chat. Is there anything that I might have missed, my friends? Or
Sounds good.
I think that sounds good.
okay, perfect. So the first question is, who are your favorite school psychs on Twitter? And then it's going to be the hashtag school psych ed. So I'm going to put that out right now.
Okay.
Let's see. So what about some folks on this group right now and who are virtual? What are some of your favorite people? And it can also be through other venues as well.
Okay, so yeah, my response is I'm sort of still new to Twitter, but I have been discovering more and more school psychs out there and people in related fields that also share some wonderful inspiration and resources and ideas, like school social workers, school counselors, administrators, and teachers. And to know, I think a good way to find good people to follow is, for example, to go to my Twitter page, and then you can click on who I follow, and then you can kind of go through, you can click on each person, you can see what their Twitter feed is like. That's how I found a lot of people to follow that I like. And then I remember Clem also once gave me advice that if you follow someone and then you discover like they may be sharing things like that, just like about their dog or whatever, that you're not, and you can unfollow them also, just so that your news feed, your Twitter feed is kind of the way you'd like it to be. Who does everyone else follow?
So I tweeted out, and I'm hoping that everybody following can see this now, but obviously our awesome guests, I follow you all. But I love the School Psych Forum. I'm a big fan of that. And then I linked some people who I tend to follow. Dr. Kelly, who's been on the podcast before, is active on Twitter, and he posts some great stuff. I've got a very cool Twitter friend, social worker, who posts some cool stuff. So I just linked some of those people. And I also linked Dr. Johnson, who has been on as well and is kind of this behavior guru. So I go to her for behavior advice for sure. But yeah, very cool. I'm trying to find if anybody else has been tweeting. I'm looking for you guys out there. So
we had an interesting viewer question that I think we're going to touch upon a little bit later in our Twitter chat as well. But she's wondering what our opinion is about a school psychologist having their own Twitter-oriented Twitter page oriented towards their school. And my initial thought is, I know a lot of school administrators and teachers that have a Twitter feed that's designated for cool things happening in their buildings, or promoting, special events, or sharing successes. And I find it inspirational. I think to keep in mind professionalism and privacy and confidentiality is really important. But I like that. I follow my own kids' principal. I follow some of their teachers that have suggested that parents follow. I think it's really fun. It's a good way to stay connected. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that as long as it's okay with your school administrator, I still find that a lot of people are very wary of social media. And sometimes people don't understand it particularly well. And you don't want to blindside a principal who might get all sorts of questions from parents. And if they're unaware of what's going on, it could create a problem. But I really think it's a great idea to share the successes and the ideas that are happening at your school.
Very cool.
I had a colleague who, so I graduated with the elementary teacher education major, and my friend is currently in the field right now, Michelle, and she's teaching a third grade, and the whole third grade actually is using a particular hashtag, and what they're doing is they're all in different parts of the book, but they're able to share the reflections and the questions, and when they're in computer lab, that's when they actually have their live Twitter chats per se. So they've now been able to talk about digital citizenship. So discussing like what are ways to be responsible, as well as ways to that it can be used for really purposeful things as well. So
That's so cool. My kid's teacher or the school uses this app called Bloom, where they post like pictures of your kids and messages, and you get it through this app. So it's so great that schools are using that stuff. Connect.
Yeah, my school's one of my schools is big into Class Dojo, and that's how they communicate with parents, and just that electronic, parents I think appreciate that. It's easy, it's quick, it's at their fingertips. So I feel like they would, social media is kind of the next step from that. I mean, it kind of just lends itself.
That one's great because you can see like how much positive and negative reinforcement your child gets, like if the teacher's actually using it. I wish that I had access to that. That's so cool. I have a colleague who is on Facebook but will not be friends with any coworkers on Facebook until they retire. So like that's the professional boundary, is that she, even though like we're friends and like I've been to her house, you know what I mean? She will not be my Facebook friend until she retires or I leave. So like it's so interesting. Some people have like such very strict boundaries on what they will do and how they will interact, and other people have.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I do that with my personal page. On my personal page that just has my name on it, I share photos of my kids or whatever, but I don't add any colleagues, parents, or students to that page. But I do invite anybody to follow the your school psychologist page, and I keep that as little about me personally as possible, although sometimes of course my opinion is interjected in there a little bit, and certainly in the comments a lot of conversations happen under things that I share, so that's where I let more of my personality and my opinion show. But I understand that point of view. What does everybody else think about that professional personal distinction? How do you keep it, or do you?
I'm not friends with students. I've rejected some student requests over the years, that's for sure. But like I am friends with teachers and other like staff that I work with. What about you, Rach?
I tend to, I'm very careful with anything that I post. I wouldn't post anything that I feel like could be controversial or anything. And I think that we teach our students too to be just very aware that anytime you put anything on the internet, it's potentially there forever. So I'm okay with, being friends with people and using social media and being kind of out in that world and, owning up to that, but just being cautious and professional always. Mm-hmm. But I know that Sue, you've been a little bit incognito on your Facebook group, and I wasn't even sure if you would agree to come on here because I've never seen you kind of identify yourself on Facebook. But how do you feel?
Well, and I haven't, just because for some of the same reasons that Rebecca mentioned before. I want to keep that separate from who I really am. On my personal Facebook page, I've friended, people that colleagues that I'm actually friends with in real life. But if I'm not friends with them, I won't friend them on Facebook, because I do share opinions on my personal page. And, if you follow the Sincerely page, I'm a little bit opinionated there as well. But because my name's not associated with it, I think I feel like I have a little bit more freedom to share some of those things, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah.
And also, it's a very interesting question. I had a couple colleagues ask me that as well. And I think kind of with the generation that I kind of grew up with is that we have Facebook and LinkedIn. And from a young professional standpoint, I see LinkedIn is more of like an upgraded resume where you can put on your accomplishments, but it's something that is not dynamic. Like I know recently they put a push on people publishing updates and feeds and stuff, but I would really use my Facebook account actually as the way that talks about who I am. And I'm just like Rachel, I really don't post anything that could be controversial. Like a lot of people, I'll post updates for conferences, life reflections. Sometimes I'll do the occasional food picture because I think we all know that we have our favorite food cravings at times. But I think that for me personally, it's more of people can see the whole picture of time versus LinkedIn. For me, it's just more of like just the professionals and the accomplishments and stuff. So that's how I see it. But what about? Sorry.
Question, NASP, does NASP have any particular thoughts on social media? Do they just kind of let you do your own thing, Clem, or are there restrictions?
It's definitely a collaborative effort. So I am in the manager of communications, so I work directly with my boss, Kathy Cohen, who is the director of communications. And also we do a lot of collaborations with other departments, so with the public policy area, as well as the marketing, as well as a lot of people also talk about NASP Gumby. He is our unofficial mascot. So you may see some pictures regarding Gumby and how he reminds us about, what school psychologists are and what do they do and such. But really, it's a kind of that collaborative effort, and we identify the content that we want to share. So based on different news articles that come out, as well as time-sensitive resources. And then the other part I also want to kind of focus on is also showing the human part. So we'll post one of those things. I think on Friday we mentioned something about stay calm, the end of the school year is coming. Those types of things too, that sometimes, because again, those types of venues are really opportunities to engage with people in conversation, not just disseminating information, but really what are ways we can connect with our members and those who are interested in the profession and such. So kind of a long answer to that. I hope that helps. But again, it's just really identifying where people are, how we can meet the need, and then we can grow together in action.
All right.
Love it. I am noticing on Twitter we do have a couple of tweets out there, so it's really exciting. I want to give a shout out to Stuck on Social Work, and Kristen Johnson is there. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being with us.
So do we want to go into question 2? Do we feel like we've covered question 1?
Take it away, Steve.
Oh no, I don't think we have sound.
Shoot, we can't hear you.
There we go. I'm back.
There.
I turned it off because my dog barked. But question 1 is still there. So people on Twitter can answer that later and can always get answers. But for question 2 is, what are some examples of professional development that have been gained or learned about through social media? And to me, this is one of the real exciting areas, which is people post links. Rebecca's really good at this. Rebecca posts a lot of interesting links to articles, things in the news, school activities. Dan Florell's another one at School Psych Tech, I think is Dan. He does a lot of really good stuff. Some of it he produces himself, doing talks about new ideas and things that he has learned. So it is a wonderful place. And the other is to use hashtags. For example, hashtag PBIS is a great place to get positive behavioral supports, or MTSS is a wonderful place to get, use that hashtag and you'll have a bunch of people interested in these topics. So it's really interesting to see what other people are doing out there, because I know when you work in a school board, you get used to your way of doing things. And it is absolutely wonderful just to see how people are doing it, in other school boards in other states and other countries. And it really does expand you. The other thing for me, because one of the things people forget about being a college professor, since it's been so long since I've been in practice now, is you get stale. And that sometimes my practice is 11 years old. So it's really wonderful to keep track of how dynamic our field is. That's one of the real exciting things. And so I can try to keep up as fast as I can with all the changes that are happening, not from researchers, but from the ground up. So it's really exciting to see that. And I get that from Facebook with the School Psychology Forum or School Psych Forum. And I get that from Twitter just by following, several really good people. So let's see if we have any.
Yeah, we're keeping eyes open.
We have Dr. Matt Burns on Twitter. Shout out to Dr. Matt. Thank you so much. He's another school psych rock star out there, a person to follow. I'm going to tweet out. I'm going to share his tweet out his handle. Also, I'm just learning the words. Sorry.
Yeah, this Twitter is like another language. I'm pretty new to this, so. And Anna, you're even more of a Twitter newbie than I am. What are your thoughts on some of this?
I'm like what I've gained from social media. I have gained connection, I would say. It's really nice to be able to go on different pages and search for things and learn more broadly about what people are doing, because I get stuck in my like little special ed world. But also, what is the we haven't mentioned it yet, the Said No School Psychologist Ever group. That one's like a private group for the school psychs. So that one is like a little bit like, I guess it's not professional development I gain, but I gain like a little release because people are kind of venting on there.
Yeah.
and like, complaining about some of the very unusual situations that like only a school psych could relate to. So I just love that.
Mm-hmm. I've heard about that group. I have not joined, and I've been a little bit cautious because I do want to also, my Facebook at least, I do have, it's mostly my friends and people that I know, and I was like, I don't want my Facebook to be too bombarded with like all this school psych stuff, so I have limited myself, but I have been curious about that group, so maybe I'll give it a little look-see at some point.
I've had to hide the school psychology forum, and I only go on there like when I'm looking for something, because it is too much, and it like there's so many discussions on there that like can get a little heated, and just you might want to correct someone, or you know what I mean, like it just puts you in like an awkward situation to like kind of be on the spot consulting almost, or that one can be a bit much for me at times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it definitely requires a little time management. I'm even noticing, more and more people are commenting and contributing to a discussion on my Facebook page. I don't have always have the time that I want to respond. So, but the good news is that other people do a really nice job of having conversations amongst themselves, and so. Sometimes all I do as moderator is make sure that there's like no swearing, nothing really harmful going on in the comments, but I don't always have the opportunity to participate like I would like, but I try to make the time when I can.
And I think that's the other thing about social media is that it's always there. And it's also when it's embedded within your everyday life, you're able to then engage in it. So it's not something that is only available from 9 to 5, or the one caveat to that is just as long as you have internet access. But once you have that down, you're good to go. You're just sitting at the coffee shop, you're about to go into a meeting, just kind of checking and seeing what's going on. And I would say another part of this whole professional development conversation is ways that social media is used at conferences. I think that's another big thing too. Recently at the NASP annual convention, we used NASP 2017 as our hashtag, which during that week, we were able to get 3,000 tweets, which encompassed that particular hashtag, and we had a reach of almost 2 million folks from that. So again, it's really about identifying ways that during sessions, people were able to share their aha moments, their questions, the resources. And especially during those times when there's 2 great sessions at the same exact time, you're like, I really want to go to that one. But I was able to see kind of the highlights and notes on social media, and even to the point where you can be in the comment area, be like, hey, love to connect more about the session. How was it? So another kind of component that conferences are really starting to utilize. I think it's great.
I think it's great too. I haven't been to a NASP conference, and I love the tweeting and the sharing because I get to have a sense of what people are learning and talking about, and it's wonderful. It's really good. We had a viewer question that I would love to address to Dr. Shaw. The viewer is wondering, how big of a delay would you say is between research and information on social media? What do you think?
I think this is one of the most exciting things about Twitter, because when you follow a lot of people, well, like Matt Burns, who does a lot of work, what you see is that as soon as something is published, they'll tweet about it. And it's really good for the scholars because we don't often have access to every single article ever. And it's also great for clinicians to get on because you can see what's brand new. And so as soon as it's publicly available, which is a problem with some journals, but with many, it's as soon as it's available, they will send you a link. And there's actually a secret hashtag that's not so secret that scholars use. And if you want an article that you can't get access to because you don't have a subscription or a university, you're probably not supposed to do this, but I'll just tell you what people do. It's in the language of the lolcats. It's hashtag I can has PDF. And what that, and so you put the link to a paper on there that's brand new. You just heard about it, but you no way to get it because you don't have a subscription. So you hashtag I can has PDF. And what people on Twitter will do is people who do, like university people, and they're probably not supposed to do this, but university people who have access to it will get you the PDF and they'll send it to you. And so it's a great way to get articles as soon as they come out because it's in the author's interest to have as many people read their papers as possible. And it is a fantastic, for me, it's one of the best because every scholar I do, as soon as they have a paper come out, I would have no idea. But as soon as it comes out, boom, they put it on Twitter, they put a link to it, and I can access it. So social media makes it really fast to turn around from research to psych professors to clinicians. It takes away all of that big giant barrier that has been there for years. So it's really one of the most exciting parts about social media use.
That's hilarious.
Wow, that's like the hottest tip that School Psych Podcast ever broadcast.
Like an underground training, like illegal. I don't know. It's like school psych. Sneaky. I don't know. I love it. Is there any fear of jumping the gun too much, like getting on board with the practice and spreading it out before the research has validated it?
Well, the advantage, and here's the big problem, if it's just somebody's wacky idea, or here's what I tried in my school board, yes, that's a big problem. But for the most part, what you want to look at is published research. And there are some problems. Published research doesn't often translate to real life, but it gives you ideas and nuggets and evidence-based practice. Because at the very least, it has to go through a peer review. Now, whether that's adequate, who knows? But at least it's a peer review. So I would say anything that's been published in a professional journal, or even to some degree has been presented at a conference. Now, that's not always great. You'll have to use your judgment as a professional. But at least something that's been published, it has gone through a peer review. So that's better than somebody used their idea someplace, which could be a wonderful idea, but it's certainly not evidence-based. So judgment has to be used.
That kind of leads into the next question is, how does social media help or hurt school psychologists? Because I think a lot of times we find a lot of stuff out there that's not necessarily evidence-based, and we have to be careful about what we're sharing and what we're promoting. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Totally. Especially teachers pay teachers. I'm not sure if that's under the social media umbrella, but man, you can get a lot of stuff on there for free, which is nice, but no clue what's behind it as far as evidence. And then there's stuff you have to pay money for, and boy, that just feels wrong if there's not research based behind that. Pinterest too, there's just so much on there. It's so fun, but like you don't always have a link back to where it came from. Yeah.
Sure.
What do you guys think?
I completely agree. And when you're on Teachers Pay Teachers, something looks very intriguing and you go ahead and you buy it, and then you're looking at it like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just spent $10 on this that I'll never be able to use.
Oh.
Yeah, the Teachers Pay Teachers. I'm always, I don't know, maybe I'm just, some of the stuff that I look at that like school psychs might put up, they might like sell a template or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of, I guess I'm of the opinion that like just share, like you're not going to get rich off of selling your templates. Like let's just help each other out a little bit. I don't know.
That's why we have a much less user-friendly Google Drive than Teachers Pay Teachers, but everything on there is just free to share because, like, let's not argue over dollars. Let's support each other.
Right. And we all know how small school budgets can be and how we, have to prioritize, what we need to purchase, and some things that are just helpful but not necessarily, worth taking away from your budget. I think we should share as much as we can. I love the Google Drive. Another hot tip for those of you guys who don't know it. If you go to School Psych Podcast page on Facebook and go look under Impressum, you'll find the link for our shared resource drive. And we ask too, if you can, please share something that's helpful or useful to you that that someone else might find useful. Take copy and take whatever is helpful and add at least one thing. And we have a really nice collection by now.
Yeah, I steal a lot of the stuff that I put into the Google Drive. Rebecca, comes from your page that you're sharing because you're like a resource sharing machine. You're just constantly. And sincerely too, a lot of your stuff, I'm like, oh, that's a fun link. I'm going to add it. That's funny. I just called you sincerely, but not using your name.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to like tweet and do everything all at once, and I'm just not. Sorry.
We're testing our executive functioning skills tonight.
Exactly.
Distracted by the Twitter chat and plus the Google thing. We've got some people chatting it up in our little Google sidebar. So hi guys.
Yeah.
Hi.
So, I think some people already touched on this, but since my page is public, I really have to, and I'm sure you do too, Rebecca, weigh how your posts and your comments to the posts affect the profession. And you said that you kind of monitor those comments on your posts just to make sure they're appropriate. And
Yes.
There have been times, I'll admit that I myself or the readers of my page have shared maybe frustrations about situations or teachers or parents that in hindsight might not reflect the best on our profession. And sometimes I'm called out for that and apologize. And sometimes, I kind of self-edit. Yeah. And sometimes those things, even if our intentions aren't bad, they can be misinterpreted by the public. And because it's a public page, we just have to always be mindful of that. So it's a balancing act between, allowing readers to freely express their own experiences, which can be very therapeutic, like I said, in this stressful profession. But we also have to balance that with the importance of promoting our profession in a positive light.
Absolutely. And more I find that I have a lot of parents who follow my page. And so it's really important to me that parents understand how dedicated we all are. And even if there is like a funny meme about, the teacher who is angry because you send the child back with the starburst or whatever, that we are expressing our frustration, but we are so passionate about the work we do and dedicated to kids and teachers and parents alike. So I take that as seriously as I can, and I try to, as much as I like to make room for some venting or discussion about what's frustrating in order to try to find ways to make that better for each other. The overall message about our field and what we do every day, I try to keep that as positive as I can, because I really truly believe that it is. I think that school psychologists are awesome. And I haven't met one yet that I don't like.
That's so nice. I can't relate. No, no, we're awesome. But I have an occasional colleague who bugs me. But okay, I have two other hurts for this topic. One is people consulting in a public type forum and sharing too much information, and other people giving answers based on just numbers and not knowing a kid. Like that sometimes that stuff, consulting online can help, but also like if you don't know the kid, you don't know all the circumstances, it's hard to really be able to help. And there can be, I think, lines crossed. The other thing is there's some like trolls out there and some haters. So Steve or Sue, what have you noticed? Like, have you had to block people? Has there been some like nastiness going on out there?
Oh, you want to go ahead, Sue?
Well, just I don't know how much to share around the election and our new leader in the Department of Education. I did share some frustrations about that choice, and the things that are shared more widely from my page definitely get a lot more attention. And there were some very nasty comments that came about at that time of the year when all of that was going down. And I, like you, Rebecca, I have to really watch those comments and, block or delete the ones that are completely not only unprofessional. These people aren't even in our profession. They're just out there to cause a wave, I guess. Mm-hmm. What about you, Dr. Shaw?
Yeah, I get a lot of, well, first of all, people who sell things, they're trying to sell you something, so they get blocked. There's also, I don't get that many real evil trolls, but I do get, yeah, I mean, that happens, but I don't get too many. I do have to, on the Facebook forum, I mean, Dan does most of the monitoring of it now. But when I did, I would have to remind people just of ethics, of, not giving advice when you don't know the case, which is an ethical problem, not giving too much identifying information, because sometimes it's pretty close to identifying information is given. And you just get inappropriate things being said. It happens a lot. So I routinely block people. The political stuff, it definitely comes through, but I have a different kind of account because as a professor, frankly, I have a lot more leeway than I did as a clinician, because you have it's a different role and function. So I don't mind a little bit of political stuff, but when it just gets ugly, you have to turn it down. And, but people selling things, I think, is one of the biggest ones. I think that's the nature of Twitter, that you will get folks trying to sell you something. My favorite is I get advertisements all the time when they find out I run what we call at McGill, a lab. Well, people are trying to sell me viruses all the time. And I think, I'm a psychology lab. This is how you get supervillains, right here. You sell viruses to a psychology lab. That's a bad idea. But no, I just block anyone who's trying to sell, anyone who's inappropriate, because that's a big thing on Twitter. But it's the sales, the constant selling is the one that really gets me. I probably end up blocking someone maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times a week.
Wow. All right. I'm seeing some more action on Twitter, so I'm excited. Some more people joining.
Yes. I think I maybe have fallen behind, but I just tweeted out, unless someone else did it for me, question 4, which is, what is your favorite, we've been talking about this, what is your favorite social media resource? Yeah, so I think we've kind of covered it, but sorry, I fell behind and didn't actually tweet it.
The conversation's been flowing naturally. I love YouTube, because I mean, our videos are on YouTube, but I did also hear that someone was posting tests being administered on YouTube. So there's also the ethical issues that come up there, and people need to be blocked sometimes. So it's nice to watch videos and see things in action to really understand. Any other resources that you guys like out there, faves that we haven't mentioned yet?
Well, for me, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, for me, one of the favorite parts that I like Twitter so much isn't that you post things, but that it's interactive. And so it's really wonderful to have discussions, helping a colleague who's really struggling, maybe emotionally, maybe there's a consultation case, but it's wonderful to have that. And if it gets personal and emotional, you can go off into direct messaging. So it doesn't have to be public. But that interactive part where you're supporting colleagues, where it's not just here's some stuff, use it as you see fit. It's we can walk ourselves through that, and we can talk about the problems of doing it and the frustrations, and so it's completely interactive. And that's one of my favorite things about it. Is it's kind of weird that I speak of some of these people as if they're personal friends who I've never met. And it's a very strange thing. I'm not used to that whole idea of personal friends, but I've never met these people. But you feel close to them, but you don't get carried away here. That you want that to be your social life. But it is really nice just to be able to interact and support colleagues in a real positive way, and to really have that sort of active, dynamic discussion.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I also was thinking about is it's also about the content, but also how it's organized. So Twitter in itself is pretty intuitive in how you're able to search for different hashtags. But for people who may be interested in all different types of topics, so say if you talk about school climate, PBIS, MTSS, ESSA, like I know we have all these acronyms and such, but all these can are hashtagable. I don't know if that's an official word yet, but if you want to learn every since we see that ESSA, like we do a lot of following different hashtags. And I'm not a promotional person for this venue, but tweetdeck.com is one of my favorite ways to help organize, because what you can do is you can organize into columns. So I have a school climate column, I have a NASP advocates column, which is the official hashtag for NASP. And I have different other ones that I follow, even for different Twitter chats, like LD, they have a Twitter chat on Wednesday. So I'll follow different ones. So that's a great resource that can help organize so you can stay on top of what is going out there on the things that are most important to me. And then I think we also had someone who was tweeting from the airplane. Did someone else see that?
Yes, no. Very cool. I want to share Peter Faustino shared an awesome quote, and it says on Twitter, it says, "We don't have a choice on whether we do social media. The question is how well we do it." Mm-hmm. And that's a quote by Eric Qualman. I like that a lot. What's the airplane tweet, Clem?
I think in his hashtag, he was tweeting from, I think he's just flying into JFK, because I think he was doing some professional development in Florida this weekend.
Oh, yeah, that is Dr. Faustino. Oh, my gosh.
Also, actions and stuff from Florida. So, yeah, now but again, it shows that he's not, quote unquote, at home right now, but he had an opportunity to look at Twitter, see what's going on, hopped onto the Twitter chat, and was able to contribute. So, it's great.
Awesome. Multitasking as we are.
Clem, you mentioned how there's lots of different Twitter chats going on Twitter at all different times. How would somebody find what's out there if they're like, hey, I want to do a Twitter chat tonight? How is there a directory?
So there is a great website that I'll also post on Twitter so that folks can see it, or you can also Google it. It's just educational Twitter chats, and it lists, there's like hundreds of them that occur. Some of them occur on a weekly basis, some of them occur on a daily basis, and they happen at all different times. I would say the majority of them happens in the evenings, because that's what folks are able to kind of break away from the everyday things of school responsibilities and be able to engage in these types of conversations. But the magic part about that is that you're able to, meet people who you may have not met before. And then what Steve was talking about, have those offline conversations. So oftentimes they'll be like, hey, really enjoyed your perspective on this. We jump on a Skype conversation or Google Hangout to discuss more. So I will be sharing that as soon as we finish.
Cool. And I just tweeted out question 5. How can we use social media to advocate for children and or promote the field? Thoughts, you guys? We've talked about a lot of this, I think, already, but.
We have. I think Sue's point about promoting the profession and sharing all the positive things that happen among us, between us, is really an important way to use social media for good.
That's a good point. Like, the gift of working with kids is huge, and it should be that should be the focus, not like the constant ranting that occasionally occurs and people ask, like, I'm thinking about joining the field, what do you think? It's not very helpful. But another way that we can help students, I think, is just being tuned in. And I'm definitely not perfect at this, seeing as how I just signed up for Snapchat today. But like, they're involved in all sorts of social media, and like, they have a hard time turning their devices off and disconnecting, and that can be really hard and anxiety provoking for them. Like, if they lose their phone or their iPad, it's like the end of the world. And you know, the connection they have with social media is real, and just being able to understand their culture and their engagement with that is important.
Sure.
Yeah, I also see that it says, you know, I have followers, most of whom are not school psychologists. And so it really is a positive thing to hear us having positive, almost really public discussions about school psychology. I have a lot of undergraduates who follow me. It's great to promote them, and they get to see what a school psychologist talks about, because most of the conversations are public, and they see the enthusiasm, they see the skills that it takes. And so it's almost like we're airing this in public to a large degree, and the way we do it with enthusiasm, with a positive aspect, with skill, they get to see what we do, and I think that promotes the profession a great deal.
Get us out of our closet offices.
Clawfist.
Hashtag Clawfist, I like.
We should have a Clawfist contest. Share a picture of your Clawfist and win a shout out.
Sounds amazing. If I ever get a Clawfist, I will engage. Right now, that's why I made that comment about like not always appreciating my colleagues, is because I have to share space with people. Like, I don't have my own space, and that's so hard.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, we'll maybe look for a couple more answers as things are trickling in, and but kind of last call for questions and things, and then we're going to wrap up. I know that I think our next podcast is, wait, let me pull it up.
Oh,
somewhere.
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
June 4th, APA Early Career Work Group. We're going to talk about that. And I just, while it's in my mind, I guess there's a shortage in the field, and in New York it's not as bad, but like even where I work, there's been openings all year that have not been filled. So like people have had to be spread a little more thin in supporting kids and like doing what's right and stuff. But I think that's a part of the advocacy that I guess needs to continue to grow, is like reaching out to the undergrads and some of those things. I think I could do a better job of, you know, just how do we get more people who are interested in the field and who have the.
It's so important, and I think right now tonight we have a professor, we have school psychologists, we have a NASP, the face of NASP, and so we have a great variety of professionals that can share a little bit of a different perspective on the field, and I think that's so positive. I hope there are people out there considering graduate school or in graduate school that are excited and motivated by our conversation, and reach out to us and continue this conversation on Twitter, because those Q1 through 5 will still be out there, and we'd still love to talk about it and hear from you and share with you.
So the best parts of the field, you have the summers off, right?
So, yeah.
Some of us don't.
I'm sorry.
Salt in the wound.
Sorry.
Well, I think we're one of the easiest sells that there is, because our training works with children from day one. We have more of a preventative rather than a psychopathology type of focus. We school psychologists generally per hour make more money than any other type of psychology except for industrial, which a lot of people don't believe that, but for PhD, it's true. As well as it's one of the only professions where there's a huge shortage in clinicians, but also a huge shortage for academics too. Just you talk about the shortage that's all around the country, and in Canada too, we have a shortage. But professors, there's shortages there. University jobs are going unfilled, and that's really unheard of nowadays. So it's an easy sell. It's a great career. I've been doing it for, oh my God, 31 years now. And it's pretty amazing, and I wouldn't change it.
We got one final comment from a viewer. Kristen Johnson will be putting together a social media webinar on advocacy. Awesome, thank you. And Sue, Steve, and Clem, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. We're out of time, so we're going to sign off. But thank you for joining us tonight and being part of this conversation and like helping me do my first tweet. You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone out there, and thanks to everyone on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. This has been so much fun.
All right.
Shout out to Michael. We had a teacher tuning in tonight.
Yes. Thank you for our teacher friends, Michael Donnelly.
No
He's kind of obligated.
Yeah.
All right, night, everybody.